From the nation's capital, Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce. A weekly discussion about the federal issues most important to Nevada. And now, from Washington, D.C., here's Marilee Joyce.
Well, good day to you. I'm Marilee Joyce, and this is Eye on Washington. It's the only statewide Nevada news program produced in Washington, D.C. Every week, Eye on Washington takes you straight to Capitol Hill for a discussion with Nevada's delegation and other leaders about the federal matters that matter most to you. Today's topic, he wants to defend those who dedicate their lives to defending us. We'll find out the many ways one Nevada U.S. Congressman is working to protect our veterans, and he is my guest today, Nevada U.S. Congressman Joe Heck. Thanks for being here again today.
Good to be back.
Thank you. According to the Department of Defense, 1 in 3 servicewomen has been sexually assaulted, compared to 1 in 6 civilian women. Today on Eye on Washington, we'll find out what my guest is doing to help prevent sexual assault and harassment in the military. And later in the show, we'll tell you how a Supreme Court decision influenced my guest's all-new Stolen Valor Act. And we'll talk about his efforts to help our most vulnerable and homeless veterans. The most recent report by the Pentagon's Sexual Assault Prevention and Response Office says that between October 2010 and September 2011, 3,192 sexual assaults were reported out of an estimated 19,000 assaults. The roughly 52 assaults per day that were reported make up just 14% of assaults committed, the DoD estimates. Well, Congressman Heck found this news alarming, particularly following news that at least 43 women from Lackland Air Force Base in Texas recently came forward as victims of sexual assault. And just prior to taping today's program, our congressman, a member of the House Armed Services Committee, chaired a hearing where victims from Lackland as well as military officials testified about the severity of the problem, not just at Lackland, but nationally. And Congressman, I watched the video from your panel, and which my audience can view at heck.house.gov. I wrote down a quote from you following the testimony of a woman who was an assault victim. You said, this is during the hearing, you said, quote, "Certain acts of sexual assaults under any conditions are especially heinous, but when committed by those in a position of power and under the collar of authority are especially heinous." I want to start with, how serious is this problem?
Well, it's certainly a bigger problem than we ever expected. It was brought out in this issue that occurred at Lackland, and then in the follow-on reports that were given to us by the Department of Defense. And I can tell you that, having served in the reserves and having been in command, I've certainly had situations where a sexual assault has been reported to me, and we've taken it through the appropriate channels. But to see the breadth and scope of this issue in the Department of Defense, especially the one down at Lackland, where it was almost a systemic problem, certainly opened our eyes. And that was the reason why we brought in both members of the Air Force responsible for Lackland to address the issue. And then we had a second panel that had victims, victim advocates, and psychologists talking about the issue.
I really encourage our audience to check out your website and see that it was really moving. So even you were shocked. I
was. Having known that this was going on, but then to understand the full breadth and how prevalent this is was truly eye-opening.
You mentioned during the hearing that, quote, that you said the DoD has taken a number of steps, but not enough to develop, assess, and refine their sexual assault programs. What are they doing to improve things?
Well, specifically out of the Lackland incident, there was an outside investigation that came up with about 46 different things that could be done. But I can tell you that over time, the Department of Defense has responded by requiring certain types of mandatory training about sexual harassment, equal opportunity, consideration of others. But it seems like those programs aren't penetrating because the problem continues to escalate. And so as part of the issue that we found was that these recruits that are, fairly vulnerable, because you've got in the Army we call them drill instructors, standing over you, exercising a great deal of power, seem to be afraid to speak out for fear that they'll be kicked out of the military. And so in cooperation with Jackie Spear from California, we've co-sponsored bipartisan legislation that would say any type of sexual contact, even if it was deemed consensual, between a trainer and a trainee during that period of training or up to 6 months after, would be almost criminal, and you would result in the dismissal of the trainer. Because again, even though they say it's consensual in some cases, the fact is you have somebody who exercises a great deal of authority and power. And in the military, you've always been taught that a request by a superior should be accepted as an order. And so I have grave concerns over the fact that these acts that are being termed consensual truly are.
Well, you said seeing things as an order. You know, a female military person who testified told you, as she was just talking to you, said there are 3 reasons that these women are not reporting these assaults. She said, fear of it becoming public knowledge, a lack of evidence that commanders are removing perpetrators from the service with consequences, and also doubt that the perpetrator will be held accountable and liable. I'm sure you felt their frustration that they're hearing, both the victims themselves and these military officials.
Sure, and you know, there's always been reports of a female who was assaulted, reported it through her chain, and perhaps there was what's called the good old boy network, and the commander really didn't take action or cast doubts over the veracity of the individual's allegations. You know, it's always that, well, is that really what happened? Sure. And so, of course, it casts a pall over anybody wanting to come forward, to think that I can bring this forward, but I'm still serving with that individual in the same unit. And so that's what we have to look at. Are we going to remove people, the alleged perpetrator, out of that unit until a disposition is made, until the evidence is collected and the case is finalized? Because that individual who's been victimized is victimized again by having to continue to serve in that same command.
You know, we're almost out of time in this segment. I do want to say, if a Nevada servicewoman is watching today and maybe has afraid to come forward with a charge of her own, as her congressman who's so involved with this fight, what do you say?
I say you have to have the fortitude and the strength to come forward, because that's the only way we're going to be able to tackle this problem. So go to your commander, and if your commander's not receptive, then you got to take it out to your IG, bring it to your chaplain, bring it to the healthcare professionals, but you have to report. Okay, thanks a lot. Just ahead, he wants to protect the integrity of our military men and women. Details are next.
You're watching Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, brought to you by the National Mining Association, Caesars Entertainment, NV Energy, the LVCVA, the Las Vegas Sands Corporation, Western Lithium Corporation, the Nevada Mining Association, Station Casinos, the Regional Transportation Commission of Washoe County, and Skyline Restaurant and Casino.
America's minerals have made us a nation of self-reliant dreamers, shaping our world and the endless ways we enjoy it. But red tape often forces us to import more than half the minerals we depend on. Minerals we already have. We don't import our dreams. Shouldn't that go for our minerals too? The National Mining Association. Learn more at nma.org.
Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce is Nevada's top source of federal news on television and on radio. But if you want even more Nevada-focused news from Washington, you need to subscribe to our Nevada's Washington Watch newsletter. Nevada's Washington Watch is the only publication that links Nevadans to Capitol Hill. Like our Eye on Washington program, Nevada's Washington Watch keeps you in the know on all the top federal issues that impact you, your family, and your business. Subscribe today at joycecommunications.com. That's joycecommunications.com.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
What is HOPE? It's a community's commitment to stopping violence against women and children. The Shade Tree Shelter continues to keep its doors and hearts open 24 hours a day to offer help, healing, and hope to women and families in crisis. For more information, call 385-0072 or visit www.shadetree.org. Together, we can make a difference. Together, we can help save lives.
And welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion of what my guest is doing to protect and defend our veterans. He is my guest today, Nevada U.S. Congressman Joe Heck. Well, as a military man himself, Congressman Heck says integrity among our servicemen and women is especially important to him. And that's one big reason he's been working since 2011 to make it a crime to knowingly benefit from lying about military service or awards. The Stolen Valor Act of 2005 made it a crime to lie about military service and awards, but it was overturned by the Supreme Court in June of 11. So Congressman Heck said he wanted to find a way to ensure the Medal of Honor, Purple Heart, and other military awards were shielded from fraud. So he made a tweak to the original in his Stolen Valor Act, which just passed the House last year and has been reintroduced in this Congress. The bill prohibits an individual from fraudulently claiming to be, quote, a recipient of certain military decorations or medals with the intent to obtain money, property, or other tangible benefit. Now, we ran out of time in the last session to make it to law, but you're keeping an eye on this till it gets to the president's desk this year?
Definitely. No, we're very fortunate to have a huge bipartisan support of the Stolen Valor Act last Congress in the House. Over 100 bipartisan co-sponsors. It passed the House by a vote of 410 to 3, but just couldn't quite get it through the Senate in time before the congressional session ended. So we've reintroduced it. We're going to fast track it back through the House. We now have a companion bill, the same exact bill, introduced in the Senate by both Senators Heller and Tester. So we're hopeful that we'll be able to marry those two bills up and get it to the president's desk.
You know, we've talked about it on the show before, but would you remind our audience, why was the 2005 Act overturned?
The Supreme Court felt that 2005 Act was too broad and was really an infringement on an individual's First Amendment right. It's your First Amendment right to be able to lie. And so if you said, I won a Medal of Honor, and then you were prosecuted because of that, you were being prosecuted because of a lie. So what we've done in our version, and in following what the Supreme Court's decision said, was that we more narrowly focused the bill. And we're not criminalizing lying. What we're saying is if you obtain anything of value, you're committing fraud, and then you're going to be prosecuted because of that.
You've been fighting this for a long time. Why is it so personally interesting and important to you?
Well, so as you mentioned, having served in the military, and I've had the honor to serve with and to command incredible men and women in uniform that have sacrificed so much. And I believe that if they're recognized for their service with one of these awards, that the sanctity and the dignity and the integrity of that award has to be protected at all costs, because many of these awards are earned and then presented posthumously after the individual has given their life for our country. And to have somebody go around saying that they're a Medal of Honor winner or that they've served in a combat zone in order to gain something personally of material value, and having never worn the uniform, I believe is despicable.
So again, this is about someone trying to get, say, money, property, other benefit from pretending they got a military award they didn't get. How common has that been?
Well, it's actually more common than people would think. And in fact, there's an individual who's helped us on the outside with this bill, Doug Sterner, who's actually compiled a database of cases nationally. And it's everything from individuals that have actually run for office claiming that they have received a certain awards to trying to gain VA benefits or trying to use that as a leg up to get a job. And so I think it's truly important that those that have really sacrificed and earned these important recognitions have those awards protected.
And it was so strongly supported in the House. I'm sure you believe it'll sail through the Senate as well. Is there?
I think so. I think we've been very careful to make sure that the bill was narrowly focused in conjunction with what the Supreme Court decision had said. Our judiciary legal staff feels that it passed constitutional muster. We talked with individuals at the Department of Justice to get their input on it. So we're confident that when passed and signed into law that this bill will pass constitutional scrutiny.
Sounds great. And coming up next, what is being done to help our most vulnerable veterans? We'll tell you right after this.
Every day, thousands of people in northern Nevada don't get enough to eat. 1 out of 5 children in northern Nevada go to bed hungry every night. But you can do something about it. Catholic Community Services of Northern Nevada has been providing help and creating hope in our community for more than 65 years. By donating food, time, or money, you can make a difference in a hungry person's life. When you make your generous donation to St. Vincent's Dining Room and St. Vincent's Food Pantry, you're helping to fight the scourge of hunger in northern Nevada. In these tough economic times, now more than ever, we need to help those less fortunate. To find out how you can donate to St. Vincent's Dining Room and St. Vincent's Food Pantry, Call, click, or stop by, and together we can end hunger in northern Nevada.
Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
You already watch Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's only statewide program produced in Washington, D.C. But for even more news from Capitol Hill that affects you, your family, and your business, you need to read Nevada's Washington Watch, our online newsletter. In-depth reporting on federal efforts that impact you. Our exclusive Inside the Beltway column, putting a microscope on Nevada's congressional delegation. Guest editorials about what Nevada needs from the Hill. Nevada's Washington Watch, your watch on Washington. Subscribe today at nevadaswashingtonwatch.com.
This girl is very pretty. It's inciting feelings of jealousy in me. We should pick on her.
I'm insecure about some things, so I think we should put some me stuff on here. Maybe even some lies, too.
Yeah.
I just want to be accepted by you both. So I'm going to send this to my friends so they think I'm cool.
Kids bully for all kinds of reasons. None of them are good. Find ways to get involved at flipthescriptnow.org.
How will new energy technology make our lives better? Will geothermal, wind, and solar energy be a bigger part of our future? Yes. And soon it will all be in our backyard. Learn more at nvenergy.com.
Welcome back to Eye on Washington, our discussion of several veterans issues that my guest is championing, and we've been visiting with him, Nevada U.S. Congressman Joe Heck. Well, according to the National Coalition for Homeless Veterans, veterans make up about 1/3 of the adult homeless population. In fact, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development and the VA estimate that more than 67,000 veterans are homeless on any given night. Congressman Heck says that is unacceptable, and so he has a bill that he believes will help make the go at least a bit easier for some of the worst off among this group. He's introduced a bill that would exempt from consideration of income by the Department of Housing and Urban Development any expenses related to a veteran's aid and attendance benefits. This Vulnerable Veterans Housing Reform Act, co-authored with Ohio U.S. Congressman Jim Renacci, is an enhanced pension program provided by the VA to our nation's wartime veterans who are severely disabled or who have little or no income. In a statement about his bill, Congressman Heck said, quote, "It is the stated goal of the House and administration to reduce homelessness in our veteran population, yet current policies restrict severely disabled low-income veterans from receiving the resources and support that they need." And Congressman, before we get to what you think is wrong with the current statute and what your bill does to improve things, I want to start with the problem. How serious is veteran homelessness, and how serious is it specifically in Nevada?
Well, as you mentioned, the statistics, the numbers are mind-boggling. To think that so many servicemen and women who have put on the uniform and have sacrificed are now home and finding themselves on the streets. And we see the numbers increasing just due to the sheer numbers of men and women that have served in the theaters of operation over the last decade. And it's very easy to see the problem in southern Nevada. One just needs to go down to the U.S. Vets building, and which I did about a month ago, to see the number of clients that they are servicing. And I'll tell you, it's not just veterans from the current conflicts. There was a World War II era veteran who was utilizing the services of U.S. Vets. A new project that was recently started called Veterans Village in Las Vegas. Great idea.
Excuse me, these were all people that were that were vulnerable, that were needing.
Yeah, all of these U.S. Vets deals with veterans homelessness and puts them into programs to get them back on track, employed and housed.
I want to emphasize that.
program called Veterans Village, which is an incredible concept. A failing motel was taken and converted into veterans housing. And so this way the motel stays in operation, the individuals who work there keep their jobs, and now instead of housing visitors, they're housing homeless veterans, and they're changing it into a one-stop shop where they'll have medical services, counseling services. So it's a great opportunity in Southern Nevada. So one just needs to go to the programs that we have to see the scope of this problem.
So what's wrong with the current statute?
Well, in the current statute, as far as the aid and attendance benefit is concerned, you take a population of veterans that are very low income and are disabled. So they get a very small amount of pension. But because they're disabled, they get some additional money to help them with their healthcare needs, to have an aide or attendant come to their home and provide them some services. Well, when they receive that additional money, it's now being considered as income by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And it's not really disposable income. That money is earmarked for them to use for their health care services. So it's not extra money in their pocket that they can spend whatever they want. But since it's counted as income, that then decreases the amount that they can receive for their housing voucher. And so it puts them on the cusp of actually not being able to stay in their own home and winding up being homeless. And so I think one of the things besides getting those that are homeless sheltered is we've got to make sure that those that do have a home get to stay in those homes. And so our legislation would say, look, they're getting this money for medical benefit. You can't count it as income, and don't count it against them when you give them their voucher for their housing.
And so removing from the HUD income formula, that would have a real impact on these people's lives.
Oh, certainly. I mean, I've had several veterans that have been put into that situation where when the calculation is done and they have their housing benefit lessened, that can no longer stay in the house or rent the apartment where they are. And that means they're going to wind up on the street. So you're going to have a severely disabled, low-income veteran on the street going to Veterans Village or U.S. Vets for services when they have the capability to be independent and in their own home if we just change this formula.
When you're working on legislation like this, I know you're back in the district just about every weekend, if not every weekend. This seems, again, you're Colonel in the Reserves, this seems a personal thing for you again, what you've seen and hear, and when you go visit the veterans' offices. What do you hear about that issue from Nevada veterans themselves, and maybe that influenced you to act on this? Well,
certainly in this case, it was a Nevada veteran. It was actually the Nevada Homeless Veterans Coordinator, a veteran himself, who came to me when I was first elected and said, hey, Joe, this is a problem that we're having.
And that's what kicked it off.
And that's what kicked it off, because I did not have any idea about the issue until he brought it to me. He happens also to be a member of my Veterans Advisory Group. And so he brought this issue to me, and we started working on it. We introduced the bill last year. Again, we were able to get it through the House, but unfortunately was unable to get it through the Senate before the end of the congressional session. So we'll be reintroducing it, and again, hopefully fast-tracking it through the House and getting it signed into law.
Yeah, it's amazing. You think, oh, I'm at home, I can't. It's just another example. You're a Nevadan at home going, I can't influence Congress. You know what? Here's a bill from this guy talking to you.
Definitely. Some of the best bills that we've introduced last year came from, even Stolen Valor, which we talked about, came from a constituent who brought the issue up.
And just ahead, we're going to have our mailbag segment. That's right after this.
All of us at Caesars Entertainment have something we want to say.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
We don't want you to gamble if you've had too much to drink.
You shouldn't gamble if you're lonely or depressed.
And if you're under 21, you're not allowed to play.
No, no, no.
No matter which of our casinos you come to, our message is always the same.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly.
Play responsibly. We know you're coming to our casinos to have a good time, and we always want you to leave feeling like you did.
America's minerals have made us a nation of self-reliant dreamers, shaping our world and the endless ways we enjoy it. But red tape often forces us to import more than half the minerals we depend on. Minerals we already have. We don't import our dreams. Shouldn't that go for our minerals too? The National Mining Association. Learn more at nma.org.
There are a million places you'd never consider texting. So why would you do it while driving? Leave risky driving to the professionals. Stop the texts, and together we can stop the wrecks.
You already watch Eye on Washington with Marilee Joyce, Nevada's only statewide program produced in Washington, D.C. But for even more news from Capitol Hill that affects you, your family, and your business, you need to read Nevada's Washington Watch, our online newsletter. In-depth reporting on federal efforts that impact you. Our exclusive Inside the Beltway column, putting a microscope on Nevada's congressional delegation. Guest editorials about what Nevada needs from the Hill. Nevada's Washington Watch, your watch on Washington. Subscribe today at nevadaswashingtonwatch.com.
Thanks to an ongoing commitment by America's mining companies, more than 2 million acres already have been reclaimed. To learn more about reclamation or other aspects of mining, visit nma.org, the National Mining Association.
And we're back with our closing segment of Eye on Washington. It is our mailbag segment, of course. In this segment, we tell you about an issue the congressional mailbag page of the Joyce Communications website has been getting a lot of correspondence about. And then we read one of your letters on the air, and we invite our guests to respond to you right here. And Congressman, we got a lot of letters coming to you, as you know, about out-of-control spending in the government. And this is cute. I have a letter from a 7-year-old. His name is Joey. He's from Spring Valley. He says, "Dear Congressman Heck, there's so much talk about cutting federal spending. My teacher says that some of the money for schools comes from federal government. Everyone says how the schools don't have enough money already. Is there anything being done so that money for schools isn't part of the big cuts?" What do you tell Joey?
Well, that's a great question, Joey, and thanks for writing. And so only about 10% of a school district's budget comes from the federal government. The vast majority of funding comes from the state and local governments. But the money that comes from the federal government comes with a lot of strings attached, so that school districts can't necessarily use it where they feel it could be best used. They've got to use it where the federal government tells them to use it. And so one of the things that we've tried to do, and we'll continue to try to do, is give more flexibility to the local school districts to be able to say, I'm meeting the intent of the law, but I've got some extra money, and rather being forced to spend it somewhere I don't need it, I want to be able to spend it where it will do more good. And so we're trying to give them more flexibility to be able to do that. We're also trying to consolidate and streamline some of the programs that we have within the federal government that haven't been performing well or are actually just copies or duplicative with other programs, so that we can take the resources that we have and focus them on programs that are working. So instead of having 47 programs not performing, if we can get to 20 programs that are, that'll mean more money for those programs that are successful. And so those are some of the ways that we've looked at trying to ensure that what little money comes from the federal government to the schools will continue to come, and that the school districts will have the flexibility to use it where it best meets their needs.
Sounds like you're on Joey's team.
I'm on Joey's team. Okay. It's a great name.
Thanks for being here today. And you can send a letter to one of Nevada's senators or House members. Just go to our website, joycecommunications.com, and check out more federal issues that impact Nevada while you're there. Be sure to like us on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. Thanks for joining us today on Eye on Washington. I'm Marilee Joyce in Washington, D.C. Have a good day.